All right. Now, okay, so here and then you can click on IP version 4 and you can change your IP addresses. Manual, automatic to manual, type in the IP address, subnet mask, the default gateway, and the DNS addresses, right? Okay, you can also, I don't know how much you guys know about IP version 6, but you're going to learn a lot. You're going to cover a lot IP version 6 in module 15. Okay, so because a lot of companies are start using IP version 6. So here you can assign an IP version 6 address, IP version 4 address. You guys need to know this very well because uh, in Cisco modules, there are two modules. You will configure Cisco device routers and switches in the lab, and in this lab, some of the compute. So you will connect your computer to router and switches, and then you will assign like what you did in Packet Tracer. You will assign IP addresses to the devices, and you test connectivity. So you have to change IP addresses frequently. So in Ubuntu, this is how you do it. Okay. So this is GUI, pretty easy. Security. Okay, you can add security to your connection. So here, connect automatically. So this is in graphical user interface. Now, okay, so you guys, I'm sure you guys probably, that's why that's why I wanted you to do Packet Tracer. You know the basic network terminology. A host or an end device is the same thing. Okay, a host and end device is the same thing. So what are the end devices? Give me the example of my end devices. Let's see.
PC, laptop, cell
PC,
phone.
laptop, IP phone, printer. Okay,
Server.
and so they're also considered host. Okay, so a network, you guys already know: internet, Wi-Fi, server. Okay, what is a server?
It's still an end device.
It's still an end device, but what makes a server a server?
The fact that it shares resources to client machines, to other machines.
Exactly. Server, okay, the main purpose of a server to offer resources, some kind of resources. Like, for example, your computer, you're not offering any, nobody's accessing your computer to view a web page or retrieve an email or download a file. This is your desktop you're using for to access the services. So the server is anything, any computer that is servicing, offering services. And what are the most popular services? Most popular servers are out there: a web server, email server. What else? uh, a database server, file server, like SRV02 in your school is a file server. All it does is share resources and people can access those resources. Now, you see, when we talk about cloud, cloud is the same thing. Cloud has file servers. Instead of it's hosted in a local area network, it's hosted, it resides in the cloud. So it's just more people can access those cloud. Anyway, file servers are being obsolete because now people share files on the cloud. Okay. What else? So these are the server services. So the server provides services. So a server, if it's a web server, uh, uh, it's displaying web pages. Client is any client that requests a service. So, oh, you can be client and a server at the same time. let's say if you have have a file on your computer and you share this file, how to share files on your computer, how to share resources, right? In Windows, yes or no?
Yeah, so I guess we'd create a shared folder
Exactly,
and
shared folder. You can
allow.
share anything. Like for
Right.
example, I can share, if I do this, if I can share download, I'll just go to properties and sharing, and I can share it with people. So that becomes, so I can become actually a client and a server at the same time. I'm serving something. All right, a router. A router is a device that connects multiple network. Okay, it and that internet is actually is just a network. It's just big. Okay, so when we talk about network, we talk about local area network, wide area network, internet. They're all network. They use the same devices. It's just one is bigger than the other. So a router is a device that connects multiple network. It connects your home network to the wide area network. So in your house right now, how many computers you have, Simran, in your house? Not computers. How many devices use internet?
A lot.
Your phone, maybe tablet, your brother has a computer, you have a laptop. So consider all this your local area network. Okay. Then your internet connection, what internet connection you have? Cable or Bell, DSL?
Um, what do you, well, what do you mean?
Okay. Are you with Videotron?
Yes.
All right. So you have a cable internet connection. So you
Okay.
have a router that Videotron give you. Actually, it's a router that connects your local area network to the internet, which is wide area network. Okay. So that's how you're able to access the internet.
Yeah. So pretty
Now,
much, all everything is set up to my router, and then the router is set up to the
there
modem,
you go. So
and then yeah.
that's the purpose of the router. Okay. It let you access network, outside of your local area network. If you don't have router, you can still connect you from your laptop to your desktop inside the house in your local area network. But if you don't have router, you will not be able to access the internet. So in companies, it's the same thing. It's just they have many more computer in the local area network, and then these computers are connected to the router, and through this router they're able to access the outside network. In this case is an internet. Okay. And the default gateway is the address of the router. The IP address, the default gateway is the address of the router. If you delete, go ahead, try it. Well, delete the address of the default gateway, you will not be able to access the internet. All right, so now we are okay with this term packet. Remember in packet tracer, you see packets going through, uh, I mean, traveling on the wire from one device to another device. So everything, all this data. Okay, when you're accessing a web page, when you go to YouTube on the internet, right? You send a request, electronic, and these electronic signals are they are packaged. So this information is packaged as small pieces, okay, and these are called packets. Now, why it's important to know about and you're gonna learn a lot about packets in other modules, okay, because it helps you troubleshoot network problem. Now, if your network is down, or sometime you say, oh, the download is very slow, okay, Now, if it's for a short period of time, it's understandable. But if it continue, then you have to, or the whole IT team have to troubleshoot why the network is down. Okay, and one of the technique to troubleshoot network problem is to watch packets. So there are programs. Well, you're gonna learn in the next module. One of them is called Wireshark. It lets you view packets as they travel on the network, and if you see packets are being lost, okay, that means there is a problem in the network. Either it could be hardware problem or a software problem. We're not going to get into this in this course. You will learn plenty of that in the next courses. I'm just preparing you for the next courses. So that's what the packet is. Did you guys have you guys ever heard of packet before?
Yeah, kind of. Just, well, more like in terms of how like companies get hacked.
Yeah, exactly. They so somebody can monitor your network. They can capture packets while they are traveling, and these packets contains everything, even your password. So they can capture they can capture the packets, and they decode those packets. So that's why you have to have very strong encryption. Okay, so people cannot steal the packets and decode them and find your password. Okay, so you know IP addresses, subnet mask. I'm not gonna host name. You assign URL, DHCP. What is the job of the what does DHCP do? It assign IP address automatically to your computer. So I go to, like, for example, here. You guys know what DHCP is? Come on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it assign address automatically. All right, so on Packet Tracer, you can configure a DHCP server. Have you ever configured a DHCP server in Windows? No. Okay, good. Ethernet is a technology. Okay, so probably you guys have heard of Ethernet many times. Your network card is the Ethernet card. Ethernet is the technology that dictates how computer communicate with each other. Well, it's a set of rules. Think of it as their set of rules. Communication between computer is very similar to communication between human being. Well, when I'm communicating with you, we have to adhere to some rules, right? Like, for example, if I'm talking, one person should speak at a time. If like five people talking at the same time, what's going to happen? There will be a problem, right? There will be a communication breakdown. We have to speak the same language, right? In order to understand each other. Same rule applies when computer communicate with each other. They have to speak the same language. That's why they use the same protocol, TCP/IP. Okay, uh, they have to also only one computer can communicate at a time. Just like human, when you're accessing the network, the other computer waits until you finish. But all these things happen in millisecond. So anyway, that's what. So Ethernet is a set of protocol. It dictates how set of rules. Sorry, okay, how computer communicate with each other. Like for example, you have a network where you have 10 megabits per second port and 1 gigabits second per second port. Okay, how they're able to communicate with each other? One is much faster than the other. Okay, because Ethernet controls it, the protocol controls it. Okay, so Ethernet is a protocol that dictates how devices communicate with each other in a local area network. And then TCP/IP is also a protocol, but it's software based. So it's a protocol. So there are two type of protocols that are used in network to communicate. All right, you're gonna dive deeper into this topic in other modules. We are just going over IP addresses. Everybody knows what IP address is. I'm not gonna go over it. This is again, this is IP version 6 address, which is much longer than IP version 4. Again, in this course, we're not learning IP addresses. You probably already know it, or you will learn in the other module. NET, it stands for Network Address Translation. What it does is it translate private IP addresses to public IP addresses. All right, what we are concerned here is how to configure network devices. So the GUI based tools I already showed you, pretty easy, just like in Windows. Okay. So you can configure either automatically, and you can also assign static IP address. Now, everybody's favorite. So GUI is easy, even kids can do it. Now, everybody's favorite, command line. How do you do it in the command line? Okay. So there will be a time when GUI is not available, right? So what you do is you have to configure through the command line. Now, the configuration in Linux, the configuration file that stores and modify network data is this file, very long. etc is the directory. Remember, there are directories: sysconfig, network strip, ipconfig 000. Now this command doesn't work in this simulator, sorry, in this virtual machine, because this command is hidden here. So this is for the CentOS operating system. Okay. Now, but here's the output. When you this is so the cat is showing you the content of configuration file. So here you have the device. This is important. This is your the card, the name of your Ethernet card. Okay. And here you have the IP address. Look, IP address, the default gateway, and the DNS. So here's all the information. So you have to look at the configuration file when you're configuring. So to use the configuration file to configure the network, right? What you have to do is you have to modify the configuration file. Okay. So you open a text editor. We're not going to do this here now. Okay. This is probably, we're going to do it later in module 19, which is the more advanced course, where you're going to learn how to modify, because we don't want to mess up the configuration. Okay. So here, what we just want to know is how to where the configuration file is and where the information is. So if you look at the configuration file, there you can, like here we had the IP address, DNS address. So just go inside the configuration file and just change the IP address, the default gateway, if you need to change. Okay. In the configuration file. If you want your system to be a DHCP client, then DHCP version 6 equal yes. Okay. So it's just the It's just a matter of going inside the file and make changes. Okay, the host name. So this is the file. Okay, here you can see the host name is the DNS name. If you want to see what this file resolve.conf contains that information. What is the cat does? What is the purpose of the cat command? We did that in the previous chapter. Let's see if anybody remembers. Cat shows the content of the file, right? We covered that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So resolve.conf is the file, and we want to see what's inside resolve.conf. So we're going to type cat and the name server. This is the DNS server. Well, it's in the virtual machine, okay? If you type this in your own virtual machine, you will probably find different output, okay? Now, for example, this server is associated with the IP address 192.168.1.2 by the DNS server. So if I type host example.com, that which one is associated to, which one is mapped to. So example.com, the IP address of example.com is 192.168.1.2. So that's what the host command does. So there are the three files that are responsible for host resolution. You know what host resolution means?
I believe it means finding the IP using a name.
Exactly, translating or mapping IP address to the name, to the domain name. Okay. If you don't have the DNS configured, what you have to do, then you would have to, instead of typing www.google.com, you would have to type the IP address. On a local area network, it's the same thing. Okay. You would have to type the IP address instead of accessing the device by the computer name. So in Linux, these are the three files that contains this information, and they're all in etc directory. So you go review your file structure. Remember, we talk about there are a bunch of files in Linux, and each file contains certain information, right? Etc is the directory that that hosts system configuration. So these are the three files: host, resolve.conf, and nsswitch.conf. All these three files contains information about name resolution. So you see all this: cat, host, here you have localhost, IP localhost, and they're all mapped to, so 192.168.1.2 is the local host. That's the name of the computer. Okay, let's see what's in resolve.conf. It gives you the name server, the DNS server address. Let's see what's in nsswitch.conf. You don't have to use all three. These are the three files. You can use any of them when you want to know the DNS. So password here, host, file DNS, protocols, okay, net group, NIS. So so all these files are used to display information about the DNS. All right, let's check some network tools. So if you want to see an IP address, okay, in Linux. What do you? Okay, how do you check your IP address in Windows command line?
You can run IP config.
Yes, doesn't exist in Linux. Okay, now this command ifconfig is an old command, right? What you have to do is there are other commands now that you're gonna learn. But let's see here. Yeah. So here it here it works, right? So it gives you an IP address 192.1. Say that's the IP address, okay? And but it doesn't give you. It just give you an IP address, okay? Now, if I type this command in my Ubuntu, let's see if it works or not. Ah, okay, guys, pay attention to this module. You have to know, really have to know how to assign IP addresses, how to use ping, how, because this is you're gonna be using for the next 2-3 months. Your other modules are, get ready. They are very, you're gonna like dive deeper into networking. Okay, so this is the base. So ifcon, and you're gonna be using both. You're going to be using both Ubuntu, oh, sorry, Linux and Windows. All right. So because I installed IP, all right. Anybody try ifconfig in your virtual machine?
Yeah, when I first tried it, it didn't work. I had to use the IP command instead,
Exactly.
or
But
install.
what message it give you that
I
it's not installed?
Oh no, this happened a couple of days ago. There in
Okay.
school. I forget the message though.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do well, for some people who don't have access to IF, you're gonna have to do the sudo app install the net tools.
No. Anyway, you can install ifconfig with the apt command. Apt install ifconfig. That's all. Okay, if it doesn't work, just type apt install ifconfig. Okay, hold on. So I'm removing, right? Uh,
Yeah, just doing the IF doesn't work.
mhm. So anyway, if it doesn't work, it gives you an option to install it, ifconfig. So just type apt install ifconfig and it will install it. But anyway, this is an old tool, but it's still, you can still use it. So if you type ifconfig, it gives you here the IP address. The important thing with ifconfig is the name of the interface, because here you can have multiple interface. LO stands for loopback interface. It's a fake interface. It's not a real interface. It's generated by operating system for internal purposes. Okay. So loopback interface, you're gonna hear this term many times in networking. So remember that. Let's see. Loopback interface is a virtual interface. It's not a physical interface. Ethernet 0 is your physical network card, ETH0. Loopback is a fake interface or virtual interface that is used for other purposes, for many different purposes, which we're not going to discuss now. All right, so ifconfig is the command, one of the command. If it's not installed, if you get an error message, just install ifconfig by using apt install ifconfig, and it will install it. Then you can use this command. Now you don't have to use ifconfig all the time. There's other command is ip address show. Okay, this command will show you the ip address, okay, as well. Here, ip address show. Okay, this is all the so this is your, or just IPA. See IPA, it gives you the same information: loopback, internet, host. So IP address show. If you don't have ifconfig, IP address command will work. Okay. Anyway, let me see. Netlab 123. Okay. So IP address show. So you have to be the root user. I was in. Okay, so here 192.168.1.2. This is, so it's much easier command. IP address show. So there's ifconfig, IP command, route, ping, netstat. So these are different tools that you guys will. Route command shows you. So here you notice when you type in Windows ipconfig all, it gives you all the information, right? It gives you the IP address, default gateway, DNS address, right? In Linux command, you have to type 3 different commands, okay, to see these 3 information: IP address, IP-A or IP address show will show you the IP address. Route command will show you the default gateway. So here, so if you want to verify your default gateway, you have to type the route command. So the default gateway is 192.168.1.1, which is the address of the router. Okay. What else? Okay. Okay, so this is the address of the router. What else? Here. Okay, by using the N option, the route command, for example, look at the following and focus on where the output used to display default. So if you use the route, actually, I'd never use the -N option. I just use route. So this is maybe something different. Yeah, so it's almost the same thing, but it's just give you the destination, more detail about the IP route. For now, you're not going to understand this because the destination is any network 40, what it means. Again, you're going to learn later. Right now, just focus on the command. So to view the IP address, what is the command? ifconfig and IPA to view the IP address. To look at the default gateway, route, or IP route show.
You can also just use IP, right?
IP, let me see. No. IP is just giving you the option. No, IP
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
work. IPA with the option A, okay? Anyway, one thing about Linux, it's an open source. Anybody can add or modify command, right? So you never know in which version. So that's why if you tell me, oh, if you can just use IP and never use it, maybe it's possible. Okay, so I always try if somebody tell me. So yeah. Anyway, so these are the command. So IP root show will give you the same the default gateway address of the default gateway. Okay. All right. Ping. Everybody knows what the ping command is, but the ping in, if you guys remember, 192.168.1.2. So it just keeps going. It just keeps sending packets. How do you stop this?
Control C.
Control C. Excellent. But here you can specify how many packets you want to send. So here with -C option, okay, it's called extended ping. So it's just going to send 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to stop. But if you want, let's say, more, you can, or less, you can just change the number. Instead of 4, let's see, 3. So it's a stop at 3. Okay. So this is how you use the ping command, just like Windows. Netstat. This is a very useful command either in Linux or in Windows. It also works in Windows. Look, if I type in Windows, this is the Windows command prompt I just opened, okay? It's not the Linux. So if I type net, okay, so I'm showing you in this window so you will have an idea. So these are all the live established connection your computer has with other computers. So if you're so one of the one of the use of netstat command is sometime, let's say your computer is very slow. So this is the tip for you. Okay, maybe there's a program behind the scene is connected to your computer and monitoring your computer. And these days it's very common. You go to a website, you accept the cookies, and they install a program, a small program in your memory that will monitor your computer. They will send your browsing data. It's not a hacking, right? They just want to know what you're like. Facebook, all this, they commonly do that. So if your computer, so if you type this, it will see the connection and it will even give you the URL. Okay. So if you're not connected to the internet or network, right? If you're not connected to the website, this way you know that, okay, that's why your computer, your network is slow, because it's taking the bandwidth. Okay. So you can close the web page or whatever is causing that traffic to be generated. Okay. So later on, again, in networking, I'm not teaching you networking. So you will learn how to close ports, how to close connection, such as this. So this is in Windows, Netstat. So it's in both. So Mike, as you can see, I have a lot of activities going on behind the scene. So even though you're inactive, but these, when you're connected to any website, it keeps sending and receiving data. As you can see, did you see? It just keep sending and receiving data. This is my computer. So this is the local address. It's my address. And this is the foreign address. Okay. All these IP addresses you see, because I have like 2-3 windows are open. I'm using Google Meet with multiple people. So it's sending signals to see. Okay. So, okay, let's type it here in Linux. So this is the, you see, TCP/IP commands are not specific to an operating system. Okay, they're command like ping, IP addresses, they're same in Windows. And so netstat-I, it gives you statistic. Now you see why there's only 2 increase, because this computer is not connected to the internet or anything. It's not using web browser. It's just a virtual machine with the command line. So you don't see many connection. But if you type it in your own computer, let's see, I do it in Ubuntu, okay? So netstat okay, so here in Ubuntu, I'm not connected to many sites, so you don't see many open connection here as well. Okay. These are just local connection services that are connected to inside. Anyway, in a nutshell, what the only thing you need to understand now, again, netstat is a command that shows you the connection from your computer to other computers. Okay, that's all. So the TLN, netstat TLN is more detail. It gives you more detail with the TCP IP address, length, more foreign addresses, listening. So it moves. So the SS command is to show socket statistics and supports. Okay, this is more, okay, I don't want you to understand this now. Okay, this is more, it's very advanced. It just give you statistics about packets. It's very hard to interpret for you at this moment. Here you don't see much, but if you see here, it gives you statistics about packets, okay, for an address. Now, to interpret this information, you have to know packets, the detail about the packets, okay? So we're not going to cover that now. The dig command will perform queries on the DNS server, okay, to know if the information needed is available on the server or not. So so in this example, the dig command is used to determine the IP address of example.com. So you have the name, for example, in this case, example.com, and you want to know what is the IP address of this example.com, because in some cases you need to know the IP address, okay, in order to either troubleshoot or access. So if you type dig, what happened here? So here it gives you, when you type dig, it gives you example.com with the IP address. Here, where is it? Here, example.com with the IP address. So this is how you find the IP address of, if you know the name. The host command works with DNS to associate host name with an IP address. So like dig, if you just type host example.com, so has IP address 192.168. If you know the IP address and you want to know the name, of the domain. You just so you use the host command with the IP address, and it gives you the name of the domain. So 2190 address, ARPA domain name, printer, where is? So it example.com here. I don't know, it's not showing here, but you will see the pointer is example.com. Okay. Other option also exist, such as cname. This is also a command, but I think this command is much easier. Just host. Cname is just another command to find out the record. Did you guys learn about DNS?
A little bit, sir.
Okay, so it's
Nothing
just
in depth.
DNS. What
But
it does is it's translate or map IP address to
names, domain names, as you said.
domain name. So these are in Linux. These are just different command to verify in case you have to know. Like for example, remember when we were in the lab when we were connecting to the SRv02 from Linux. Now, because your Linux computer wasn't using the local DNS that maps local computer to the IP address. So you were not able to access SRv02 with the name of the server. You remember when we were using the IP address, right?
So, sorry, what did you say the issue was? How come it didn't work
Oh,
initially?
because your Linux was not configured with the local DNS, because we have a local DNS for Active Directory. You do
Okay.
not learn. I don't want to confuse you guys step by step. You're gonna learn in module 14. Like from now on, it's all networking. Every module, server, Active Directory. So those of you who don't like networking, I mean, so you have to get into networking, and that's where the real opportunities are. I don't know if you guys were told the either you become a developer or software engineer or network professional. Anything in between is hardware technician. Okay, there's not much use of hardware technician these days, and it doesn't pay as much. There's not a career in that. Anyway, so yeah, what I was talking about, what I was saying. So these are different. So yeah, so we were not able to access SRv02 by using the name. So what we had to do is we had to use the IP address. What if I don't know the IP address? Okay, so you can use these command to find the IP address. Okay, SSH. This is, you will use this command a lot from now on in different module. This command is let you access remote devices. You can access your Linux computer using SSH. Okay, so you don't have to use any host, any any desk. Any desk you use it because you want to use the whole graphical user interface and the whole computer. But if you configure SSH, you can connect to your Linux machine command line from a remote location. Also, SSH is also used in networking devices, for example, switches and routers. Because routers, let's say if if you have to configure a router that is located in Toronto, okay, you will not travel to Toronto to configure that router. You will access it remotely. And the protocol that is used to access remote devices is called SSH. Secure Shell is instead for Secure Shell. So you can also enable and configure SSH in Linux so you can access it remotely, your machine. Okay. So the SSH is the command, and BB at test is the name of the computer. Could not resolve the host name because it's a virtual machine. It does not work, but this is how it works. You just type SSH and the name of the computer, and you can access. But you have to configure your computer to accept SSH. So yeah, this is the SSH protocol, and like I said, so you use SSH, but you have to configure it. SSH. SSH use a key, okay, meaning encryption key, so nobody can steal your data and decode it. So that's what RSA key is. All right, so let me see. Okay, hold on a second.